Hi, this is Stacia, and I wanted to share a very interesting and dynamic game that I got to play on Tuesday at the Parma Championship. This is the final round, and I got paired up with my own coach, Jim Antoline. And yeah, very interesting pairing. He was actually winning the tournament, and he needed to at least get a draw against me to get clear first. And I had no intention of making that easy. So, you know, I'm facing my own coach in a rated tournament game for the first time. And basically my attitude was, I want him to be proud of me. I want to play well. I want him to see that he taught me well, you know? So this is also a G90 game, so this is what I call a real game of chess. It's a slow enough time control that, you know, it's a real battle. Yeah, and in addition to that, this is my final week at my old job. I only worked there 2 days this week, but it's just to do orientation for the new person that's taking my job there. I was real estate, or I was housing development officer at a nonprofit, and but now I've taken a job at a nonprofit chess organization called Progress with Chess, and I've been working both jobs part-time the past 2 or 3 months, and now I'm going to transition to just part-time at the chess job, while I also hopefully pursue getting like students for chess or work on my YouTube channel a bit. Hopefully I'll be making a lot of leaps and bounds with this. And I'm also, you may not know this about me, but I'm also a professional cornhole player. It sounds funny. I haven't really explained that in my blog yet or the videos, but I will at some point. And so I want to work on that and getting sponsorships and so forth. So I'm in a very exciting time in my life, and sometimes it's interesting. I think that when you feel good about your life, or you just are in a good mood or whatever, I think it's like chess has a way of reflecting that. And I've been playing a lot stronger these days, and I want to say that it's in large part to these positive life changes that I'm excited about. Okay, so sorry for that long intro, but hopefully it was interesting. So playing my coach here, what does he play against me? I thought for sure he'd go for Scandinavian, because he basically knows how to refute the line I play, and we would get a very messy position. But he chose not to do that. He chose to go with d4. I played knight f6, and this is the thing, like him and I look at openings all the time together, so he knows exactly how to steer this into what he wants. c4, I play c5 against this, he pushes, and he decided to face my Benko Gambit. Usually I get a Queen's Gambit declined against him, and he knows that line way better than I do. But he told me after the game that he chose this because he wants to practice this line. Makes sense. And I know he does have a very interesting line against the Benko Gambit, as you'll see. So he takes here, a6, and now the move f3. Okay, and the only time I've really seen this move is against him, like in a practice game. And if you go into my opening section on my channel, you'll notice that I do have a video that goes through the main line of this variation. I'm really happy that I did that, because even though I probably made that video like a year ago, I did remember the main idea of how to play against this, which is at some point we need to break with e6 and then d5. And if we can ever get that in, black's fine. So that's what I remembered, and so that's my goal moving forward. I have to admit though, after f3, I wasn't sure what the book move was, but I thought that I recalled just normal development. So I played g6. This is actually not the main line here. the main line is to take the pawn. And white plays e4, threatening e5, and then black plays this weird way. Queen a5 check, bishop d2, and now b4. So taking space on the queen side and sort of trapping this knight, but this knight then can play knight a3, taking advantage of the pin and eyeing the c4 square, which is an excellent square for the knight. d6, got to stop this e5 move, knight c4, and now queen d8. And I have to admit, to my eye, this position looks interesting, but it definitely looks better for white to me. White has an awesome center and a very strong knight posted on c4 already. But I'm sure black has a lot of counterplay. So I guess I would go into something like this, but I kind of like the way I played it better. So after f3, we played g6. I'm like, yeah, you guys are with me. We played this. All right, white played e4. That's like the idea behind f3, is white's going to play e4 without support of the knight on c3 very quickly and be threatening e5, or just have this very imposing pawn chain. Like, this is an intimidating pawn chain. That's why you pretty much have to play e6 in these lines. You can't live with this. It's just makes your light square bishop bad, and it's just very cramping. All right, I played d6 just to stop d5, and he went knight a3. And this is the main move in this position. It's funny, in my notes I wrote, interesting move, but I suspect it's not sound. But this move is sound. It is the main line, and I understand that the problem is that this knight wants to go to c3. So if he had put this knight onto c3, the knights would be fighting over the same squares and they would be superfluous. So knight a3 avoids that. Also, the knight would be really good on the c4 square. And it's defending the pawn. And in fact, much like the e3 modern variation of the Benko Gambit, white gets a lot of support on the b5 square. It's like white totally owns this square in my camp. You know, this other knight's coming to c3 and will support it. The bishop's supporting it. The knight's supporting it. Perhaps he'll play a4 at some point. So this is a strong point in white's position. So, okay. I played bishop e7, just developed normally. Knight e2. Yeah, I'm hoping I don't take too long in this video, although I'm not off to a good start, am I? So I'll try and not go too into depth, but I definitely want to point out the interesting moments in this game, which there's several of them. Right, I castle. So I'm just developing, and my idea is to get my king safe and play e6. He played knight c3, so that was the point of knight a3. And now the computer, or not the computer, but the book moves are knight b to d7 and knight e8. Very interesting. So I guess this opens the bishop up. So that's kind of interesting. And yeah, I don't fully understand these lines. And I played the move e6. So this is something I'll be studying more in the future. But the interesting thing is that if you let the computer think for a little while, it actually says e6 is the best move and that black is equal after this move. So maybe I prefer e6 here, at least until I understand those other moves better. Okay, white played bishop c4, and so I guess he's reinforcing the d5 square and developing a piece. So it seemed like a good move to me. Now the point of playing e6 is to break down this pawn chain and also free my light square bishop. So I took. Knight takes. This does improve the knight, but bishop e6. And I was feeling pretty good about the position here. It does feel like white still is slightly better because this knight is very strong. But it's not totally clear. I also have this, this weak pawn. And this is why I mentioned like e6 is important, but also if I ever get d5, that's really what will equalize black, because I won't have a weak pawn anymore, and basically my problems will go away and I'll just have a better position. So okay, bishop to e6. Now here white castled, and I do want to go back for a second, because before white castles there's some interesting stuff that can happen. Yeah, even before bishop c4. Yeah, in this moment, my new boss at work, National Master Mike Jolson, suggested looking at, not maybe playing, but looking at the move knight h5. And he slammed this down. He's like, can we mate the guy? I'm like, mate the guy? What are you talking about? But, or maybe it was after e6. But basically there's ideas with e6, queen h4 check, takes. Yeah, it gets I guess I'm not remembering the line correctly, but there's definitely ideas with that, and there's definitely ideas with let's see, I believe it was at this point. So after takes, so bishop c4 takes, knight takes. At this point in the game, he was pointing out stuff like, is knight takes e4 possible? Because after f takes e4, we do have this queen h4 check move. And it looks a bit rattling for white, doesn't it? I mean, black gave up a piece, but now we're checking the king. King f1, grab this pawn. Now lucky for white, or maybe not lucky, the knight is defending the bishop here. So everything's held together pretty well. Like, it looks like pretty good piece coordination. And it says like after queen f3, black has nothing. Black's just down a piece. So those are the kind of lines that I don't even see. So I think it's important to look at moves like knight takes c4 here, because if it did work, like if it led to something where there's another tactic or something, then that's something you definitely want to play. But in this position, it doesn't work. It's just something that I should definitely look at. All right, so I played bishop e6, developing my bishop. A very Stacia move. Castles. Knight b to d7. And yeah, this move, I don't know about knight b to e7. I was having a hard time figuring out what to do in this position. And it turns out the best move is to take this knight. Now this looked like risky to me, because bishop would take and it's hitting my rook in the corner. So I didn't see this next point, which is I can throw in this check. Bishop d4 check, king h1, and now we take the bishop, and there's no recapture by the queen anymore. Now white takes like this, and so we've given white an isolated pawn, and this pawn probably can be won by us later. So not only that, but that strong bishop is gone, and the knight's still on the rim. Yeah, I definitely like this position for black, and I wish I would have continued in that way. So I didn't find that. I played knight b d7, just developing, nothing special. And now he played knight takes. And yeah, this move kind of rattled me. I didn't really calculate this, which I should, right? I didn't think he'd give up that strong knight to help me develop. But this pawn is weak, and it opens up the attack by the queen. So I thought knight takes is forced here. But another interesting moment. The best move is not knight takes. It's queen takes. Now this is totally counterintuitive because we're going to sacrifice this pawn basically. So let's say white does take this pawn. By the way, the computer doesn't even want to take it. But let's say white takes this pawn. Well, I have queen d4 check. This forces a queen trade. And after check, king h1. Now we take here. Knight takes. And we can take this pawn with tempo. The knight comes to e3. And looking at this position, yeah, I'd say black's doing okay here. The position must be equal. This rook is now opened up. I don't have any weak pawns. I just have connected pawns on the queen side. This bishop is very well posted. We can always go back to g7. We have a lot of pressure on the queen side. The knight has this nice e5 square. Yeah, I think this is a position I'd like to play. Black might even be slightly better here. So a very interesting line with this pawn sacrifice. Yeah, and yeah, I guess keep in mind black is down a pawn here, but black has a lot of good play and probably will win one of these queenside pawns if I had to guess. Okay, but I played knight takes f6, which is just the natural move there. Now he played bishop f4, and this looks like such a natural move, and it's kind of funny. I like throwing in these little psychological things. When I analyzed this game with my coach, he must have said like 3 times, I need to apologize for playing so badly. And I disagreed with him and said, well, I don't think you played badly. But maybe for him he did, because there were a lot of dynamic moves that were strong for him. So he had lots of opportunities. And but they were moves like this, where bishop f4 looks very natural. You're attacking my weakness, and it's not so easy for me to defend. And but this is actually a mistake, and for the reason in the game. The better move here is actually bishop to g5. This would maintain advantage for white. This would attack the knight, pinning it, and also the knight is going to help my advance to d5. Because like I was saying before, black really wants to get d5 in, and if we can get this in, I think we're doing fine. So I was pretty much looking at this idea at this point in the game. So after bishop f4, it looks like I can get d5. I take here, knight takes back, and now it looks temporarily scary because everything's attacking my weak pawn, but now I just have d5 and I push. Yeah, and here I want to say that black's already slightly better. This pawn break is just awesome to get in. I mean, white used to have a strong knight posted on d5, and now I own this square instead. So taking over this central square, I think, shifts the entire game. And that's what pawn breaks often do. So I definitely put a lot of stake in them when I'm playing my middle games. All right, so yeah, what should white do? Like, how should white respond to this? Well, I think if he plays e5, it's a mistake, which is part of why I went ahead with this, because I just play knight h5 and I'm hitting the bishop. So taking doesn't look appealing. He gives up more of his center, and my knight will recapture with tempo, which is actually what happens in the game. So the best move by the computer is just to move this knight to a3. So again, like a very counterintuitive move. But that must mean that white's position isn't very good right now when you see moves like that. All right, so he did not go with that. He took. And the computer doesn't like that. And I took here. So attacking the bishop, but also eyeing this forking square here. And now white has a good move. I mean, black will still be better, but yeah, if you'd like to find this move, pause your video because it's not one that I saw during the game. Bishop e5, a strong strategical idea. This bishop is a monster. It has a beautiful diagonal. There's likely going to be pressure down the queen side. Bishop e5 offers a trade, and taking advantage of the fact that the knight is controlling the e5 square. And really, I mean, black should just take here. And after these moves, yeah, probably just what? Knight a3. Black's still better, but yeah, I would feel sad about losing my dark square bishop. So I definitely think that trade benefits white. Okay, but in this position, white played the move queen c1. And it's funny, the computer says this is a huge mistake. It's kind of like Job from Arrested Development. I've made a huge mistake. I didn't realize this is such a big mistake during the game. I just saw that he was probably going to pin my knight, and I didn't necessarily like that. And I took the bishop. Mind you that, or I'm sorry, I actually threw in this tempo move first, which I like. Computer approves. This connects my pawns together, opens up my rook. And he went knight d6. Yeah, so I thought he would do this. This is a very signature type move from my coach. He likes to have minor pieces supported by other minor pieces in people's positions, and he's really good at causing trouble. I didn't think he had much with this knight here, though. And now I aimed to simplify the position in my favor. So I took, and queen takes. And now I saw that I had the move queen c7, which is annoying for white, I think. I'm pinning the knight. I have ways to attack it soon. He has to be careful. Queen g3 is a good move, though. It just simply defends the queen. It also might create a pin later if I move this bishop, which is likely to happen. So, yeah, and in this position, I make a mistake myself. So, and this is where I need to really work on my game. I'm pretty good at getting advantages. I often do, such as this position, where the computer says I'm minus 4.5. But then I don't convert these advantages into wins or into strong positions, like further strong positions. So yeah, and I tend to simplify them, as I do in this game, into positions that are slightly good instead of really good. So here, bishop takes b2 is brutal. Like the computer says, rook a to b1, attacking the bishop, rook takes a2. Notice I don't think he has rook f2 because I have rook a1. Attacking this rook, and if he takes, my bishop is unpinned and just moves away. So he could take here, but queen c6. So attacking the knight. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just going to follow the computer line. Knight d6, c4. Yeah, and I think once the pawn gets to c3, that's pretty uncomfortable for black, and for black, I mean for white. And yeah, computer says -4. So I should have continued in that way, keeping a lot of the tension and the play in the position. And I guess I just kind of like won a pawn. I have this pass pawn. Yeah, black's doing really well. Instead, I got a worse version of that, much worse. I played rook f to d8. I was trying to be principled, you know, get my last rook into the game. But the problem is I just gave up this pawn for no real reason. I actually think a better move is to just push this. And the funny thing about this is, or not push that. I actually meant to push this one. And the reason I like this move is now if white tries to take, I actually have the move queen c5 check, forking and picking up the knight. So it stops white from taking this pawn tactically. And I think, you know, queen trade is going to be in my favor as long as I don't lose one of these pawns. But I chose to lose one of those pawns by playing rook f to d8. So I thought I'm going to get activity for the pawn, but it's really unnecessary. So he takes. Mike Jolson said he would take that pawn in 2 seconds. Yeah, I mean, so I'm not sure why I gave that up. Well, I am sure. I saw that the resulting endgame was good for me, but it's just slightly better instead of much better. So here, yeah, I saw to take here. I saw this move. I figured I'd trade, which I do. And now rook takes a2. And I do have this nice pawn. But that's kind of all I have. I mean, there's still play on both sides of the board, so the bishop should be better than the knight. But yeah, the computer says minus 0.7. So I would say, you know, rook f to d1, or rook f to d8, I'm sorry, is definitely a blunder to give up that much advantage for this tiny advantage. Okay, but this is still, you know, I still have winning chances here. So let's continue. Wow, I think this video is getting long, so I'm going to try and go a little faster, even though this is still a very rich game in the endgame. All right, so here, he checked me. I thought this was smart because white has ideas with the knight here and the rook here. And I'm playing against this pawn. And then if the knight ever gets to this square, there's Arabian mate ideas. So I have to be careful. And I was seeing some of that in some lines. But he attacked my pawn. Now I have to defend it, so I checked him. He came up, and now rook c1, defending the pawn. He brought his king up, and I pushed. Yeah, I mean, I figure I gotta push this pawn. I might even want to consider ideas like rook to b2, and maybe I gobble his pawns over here and give up this one. And Mike Jolson, National Master Mike Jolson, said he thought that was a very good way to continue. But I played this way, and it's okay. He played knight to d4. I actually thought the knight would come to d6. So I don't think that move's as strong. And now I went ahead and pushed. He came back to knight b5. And his idea is for me to push this pawn, and then he'll play king d2. But I saw something really interesting here, and I decided to push it anyway. And I really like that I found this with not much clock time. Probably about 5 minutes left on my clock. So he played king to d2 as planned. But here I have the move rook d1 check. And now if he takes the pawn, which he did, I simply come back, check, and this is a skewer. I give up my bishop, but I win a rook. And this should be winning. So very happy with my game that I got this winning position. And now a surprise though. This is not so easy to win. I thought, you know, when I saw this position in my head, I'm like, oh, this is winning. even with 3 minutes on my clock, I can win this. But not so easy, actually. And I actually didn't write down the moves from here because I only had 3 minutes, but I can show you basically what happened here. And he created sort of a fortress. So, all right, f5, that's probably fine. I'm just making a clear path for my king to get into the game. He wants to move his king out. So maybe instead of f5, a move I could try is something like rook d8 or rook e8. Just creating a barrier, making it more difficult for his king to come help in the defense of these pawns. But I played f5 and his king's starting to come over. Yeah, and here I really should have played rook d8, I think. Just stop the king from coming over. But I came here because I thought I could be annoying and check him from the side. This is still fine. King f6. Yeah, what does white really do here? I'm not sure. King d2. Bring my king up. Knight a2. So I really like this move by him because what he did is create a wall for my king. Now the knight is guarding the dark squares and his pawn is guarding the light squares. And so that's a pretty effective wall against my king. Don't like it. Check. King e3. King f2. And now the king's helping with the defense of the pawns. Yeah, I think I played something like h6, and at some point he pushed g4. That's probably a mistake. I probably should take that, and I'm kind of sad that I didn't, because it looks pretty obvious to me now. But I know I played something like rook a2, and then he took. I took with my king, and now I don't think I should allow that, because the more pawns I have, the more winning chances I have. If we get to a point where I have only one pawn, then it's very likely he can sack his knight for that pawn in some lines. And then, well, I don't know. I mean, a rook and king can still checkmate, so I don't know. It's not so easy, though, to break through this. He still has this annoying wall. Yeah, so like, I don't know what I do here. I think he played something like king e1, and I played h5, and eventually what happened is I tried to get tricky and push h3, and he took it, and then he won my other pawn, and I had rook versus knight with no pawns, and I sacked my rook for his other pawn, and it was a draw. So sad ending to a well-played game, I thought. There's lots of stuff I missed. Very dynamic game. Lots to learn from this game. But I'd say that's a huge win for me to hold my own against my own coach. And yeah, so I hope that you enjoyed this game. And looking forward to next time. All right, have a great day. Bye.